hand is raised up. I don't know if that was before your contribution. If maybe it was, maybe we can have you put it down. If there is something that you want to add, kindly go ahead and do that, please.
I had a question yesterday. I think I typed in the chat just before we finished the session. Maybe I can still ask it.
Please go ahead.
So my question was not really on the communication part, but I was asking about a problem I probably have. So it's something like you can prepare for the presentation or the communication well, like a prior, and then on the day of the presentation, the moment you ask to do the presentation, I think I tend to forget everything that I have practiced or prepared for. And then I remember the information I was to do after the presentation. So I was asking, how do you deal with that?
Sorry, Gertrude, I got interrupted a little bit in my thought process when you were asking the question. Allow me to kindly request you to just take it again, if you don't mind, please.
Okay, it's fine. I was asking, how can you help a person who has like, I do the presentation well. I mean, I prepare for the presentation. I do all the practices. I know what I'm supposed to say, but on the day of the presentation, I don't know what happens. Like everything else that everything that I'm supposed to say during the presentation evaporates from my head. And then I sort of remember everything after now I'm done with the presentation. But now I'm imagining if I remember well, like I've prepared well, I could do the presentation better. So I'm just asking, what advice can you give such a person? Yeah, that was my question.
Okay, Gertrude. Sorry about that, but the comforting part is that there's so many of us out here who struggle with the same. Basically, that is just an issue of managing our nerves, because usually what happens, it's not that really you forget. It's that you're a part of you. You possibly it or not, you possibly panic, nervous, and that is what gets us or our brains to kind of block. That is why many of us will have a presentation that is very well prepared, remember everything, but you do your presentation, you all know your name, you know. I think it's manage our nerves during presentation. Is a whole different training, but I do not mind a few tips that have worked for people, like for me and for other people. One of them is, I know you have said that you prepare, but I would like to pose another question to you of how much in advance do you do this? How much? Okay.
Like a week before?
All right, thank you. So it is important that you do it well in advance, because when you do it well in advance, it kind of doesn't give you the pressure of memorizing the last minute. So it is great that you do it in advance. For those of us who prepare for our presentations just a few minutes to or the night before, that could be one of the things that contributes to us having the nerves. The one thing that I find to apply very well for very many people, first, is starting with the mind and asking yourself, what do I really want out of this? What I want out of this is maybe if it's a conference paper, you want to network, you want, to successfully put across your points to the people around you, your supervisors and your mates. If it is a class presentation, you simply just want to make points come across. But the thing is, can we possibly start by just having the end in mind? Because when you have the end in mind, you kind of quieten your nerves. And for me, the thing that why many things work for different people, different things work for different people. And I wish we had enough time to go through that, because that is something that many of us really struggle with. But for me, what I ask myself is, what do I want? And by the time I'm asking myself that question, I'm trying to allow my thought process to appreciate the fact that it is not such a serious engagement as my brain wants to tell me it is. Because before I ask myself that question, my brain is all over with all these issues of, if you fail in this, you're done. And that is basically what makes us start actually even thinking and imagining we are going to fail. And that is usually the source of our panic, because you're fearing to fail. But basically, if the assignment ain't so great, then the nerves are proportionally not as weighty. Let me try and explain what I mean. You're not likely to have the same level of nerves when raising your hand and answering a question in class as you're likely to do when you're actually raising a hand to ask a question during a conference presentation, right? It's a different level of nerves. And it's also not going to be the same nerves, or rather, you're not likely to have the same level of nerves if maybe you're being asked to make a presentation in front of your colleagues. It is going to be even different if you're going to do it in front of your supervisors and your mentors, and possibly even a lot different if you're having very important guests into the session, people that you'd like to please with your presentation or make a mark in with. So it is how important your brain interprets this to be weighty or to be that actually multiplies how nervous you feel. So first you need to ask yourself, what do I want? Okay, fine, I just want to pass across the point. That's, if I can pass across the point and people understand what I'm saying, then that's fine. That's step number one. Step number two is ask yourself, remember this is an internal conversation. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could ever happen? Yeah, and a lot could really happen. And I'm not going now to try and think what is likely to happen. No, I'm just asking myself, what's the worst could happen? Like me, I have a joke I usually play with myself. I tell myself, there are no jail cells for people who bluff in their presentations. Like, there are absolutely no jail cells. And I have never had anybody who actually was ever shot and died. So I really hope I don't mess this up. But in case I do, the worst that can happen is just that I do. The worst that can happen is just that I do. There's nothing much. Nobody's gonna kill me. Nobody's gonna hold me in any cell. They don't even exist. So I am fine. I really am fine. This is an internal conversation. For those who are spiritual, also taking some time to pray and ask that the spirit of calmness and the spirit of confidence really takes control in your life also works a lot. But there are also other tips that I encourage, like breathing in deeply. Often we take breathing in deeply as just any other practice, but really breathing in deeply. I have doctors in the house, they will tell us how true this is, but it actually helps circulate a lot more oxygen into your system. And I'm told that, or I'm advised that supply of oxygen into your system actually does have a calming effect. And that is why often when anybody is on their nerves, they'll mainly be asking you, take your time, take 3 deep breaths, like just cool yourself down. That mainly will happen before the presentation. But there are other tips that can also really, really, really help. Over and above making your presentation in advance, we also encourage having written just a few bullet points. You can do it on your machine, you can do it on a piece of paper. You can be creative about it. Some of us save them as notes in your phone. But the only thing is, do not write paragraphs. Just write a few words that actually remind you of what you want to talk about. Words that come natural. Like if maybe you were making a presentation about the effect of hand washing as a tool of containing, contagious diseases or whatever they are called. Then you may want to just put tips like maybe soap. And when you put like soap, it may remind you that at this point I'm supposed to be talking about the importance of using soap or washing hands with soap. Now, writing the word soap, other than writing a whole sentence, which is importance of using hands using soap when washing hands, is important because first you can easily be able to take a glance in between your presentations. And taking a glance in other than reading a sentence just makes your presentation a lot continuous. And when you're continuous, it also makes you a lot more calmer because you feel in charge. It is a lot better than when you have to pause for 2 seconds to read a line or a paragraph. And silence is very hard to feel. Silence is very, very hard to feel. And that is why in most presentations, before the next speaker comes, often people will be asked to maybe clap or can we welcome so-and-so in a different way, just basically so that by the time the person is standing, it's not dead quiet. Because silence is very, very hard to feel. It's also one of the measures that we use as journalists to put pressure on people when we're interviewing them to actually get them talking. Like if I ask you a question and you answer, and I'm not very confident or I'm not very satisfied with the answer you have given, then you will finish and I will say nothing. I'll just be quiet and look at you, not in a rude way, but just to allow silence to make you uncomfortable. Because what silence does is that it gives you the in between a conversation, that is, it gives you the pressure to want to feel that silence. And because now everybody is expecting you to be talking. And you have no idea what you're supposed to be saying, but it's quiet and it makes you uncomfortable. And that is what really, really, really ruins us, because in those moments of silence, you will want to fill that silence with something that you are not ready to say. And that is why I usually say, if you're not very good at handling silence, then you'd rather not pause to read paragraphs to remember what you're saying. Just speak a word or two. That will help. Another thing that really helps is mainly for big presentations where you're going to use a particular sorry, I'm making this presentation as I also admit our colleagues, so sometimes it's throwing me off a bit, but please be patient with me. So when you are making a presentation in a certain venue that you're not familiar with, in a new venue, one of the things that we'll advise is go to the venue well in advance and make yourself comfortable. Like, even if the venue is not yet set, by the time you see how the venue is, you know where the sockets are, you have seen where the podium is, you have seen the arrangements of the seats, the color of the floor, and all that. You have gone around the venue and basically let your presence be absorbed into the venue. Really, when you go there, you also reduce the pressure that comes with too many new things, too many a new venue, new people, maybe new set of arrangement and all that, because that is also one of the things that contributes to our nervousness. So we want to actually familiarize ourselves with the venue well in advance. You may also want to arrive into the venue in good time. That is also something that you want to do. But most importantly, you also want to familiarize yourself, if you can, with at least some of the people who will be attending the conference or the show or whatever event it is. If possible, and whenever is possible, please get to know who is attending this. And if it is maybe a supervisor or someone that you're going to engage with, then it is very important that you familiarize yourself maybe with their credentials, you familiarize yourself with their previous work, you familiarize yourself with their interests, you familiarize yourself, because it's always easier to talk with people you know other than strangers. And also it prepares you better, because you know if this my area is, you address me, have a better understanding of where my questions or my engagements are likely to come from, which corner I'm likely to be coming from. So that basically helps us calm down. So it's quite a bit of stuff we can do, but this would call for a whole other session. So I was just giving you a few tips that I know have worked. But there's also the pressure that comes with making presentations or appearing before the media. So that those are a complete different set. And I hope one of these days we can get him to go through them. But one of them, like I said, is just basically familiarizing yourself with what is expected, especially if it's your first time in the media house. You want to familiarize yourself with the dress code, because you do not want, for example, to go for men with very striped or checked shirts. And then you get there and you realize that the media house personnel are some people are trying to fit you into coats, and suddenly you realize, no, my shirt is not the best, or it's one of these colors that really bleed like red. So you want to familiarize yourself with which colors work the best for me. And before those of us who have not been to the media house start finding it really weighty, allow me to take 2 minutes to just make a clarification that it's really not that complex when you're dressing for the media. You just avoid bleeding colors if it's an indoor event, or if also you're going to have an outdoor event, but where it's very sunny. You also want to avoid bleeding colors. Bleeding colors are very bright colors that seem to run in the camera. The most notorious is red. So especially if it's a shirt or a short dress, we really want to avoid color red, for that purpose. Although now we are getting cameras that are handling colors better. Initially, it really used to be a worse crisis than it is now. Right now, the lenses that we are having are handling colors better. The second thing that you'll want to avoid is something that is checked, especially very fine checks. The worst is when you're having checked white with any other color, like maybe checked white with blue or checked white with red. There is a way those checks seem to be distributing light unevenly, and it really makes it uncomfortable for the people watching. They may not be conscious about it, but really it tires the eye, and it also doesn't give a very good result on the camera. And stripes, especially very thin stripes, also have a similar effect, although it may not be as bad as checked. But we also want to avoid stripes, especially when it is white with any other color, like say maybe white with black. Often, and also remember, I said it depends also with the lighting and also with the cameras that we are using, but it can be pretty uncomfortable. So if you go into the media house and you realize that they're asking you, could you please put a coat on yourself? And they usually have coats that are there that they will give you a chance to fit in, or maybe a shawl. Could you throw a shawl onto yourself? Let it not take you by surprise, because sometimes the colors of your attire may want to be dumped a little bit, just a little bit. Then the second thing is just how comfortable are you in sitting with what you're wearing? Because sometimes we wear outfits that are pretty comfortable for us when we are standing, but become something else when we sit down. Sometimes they'll be too short, sometimes they'll be too tight. Sometimes they will pull off their ankles and all that. So you really want to sit down and before you walk out of the house and be comfortable, that you be sure that you'll be comfortable sitting down with that attire, and not afraid of exposing yourself in any way. But should you find yourself in such, especially for men, basically what we'll ask is if your trouser is a bit short, it pulls up when you sit and you're not feeling comfortable about it, most of us wouldn't, then the biggest trick is avoid crossing your feet, because when you cross, especially from the knees, it's not even something that is advisable during a show unless it's not a full body cover. But if it's a full body cover, it's still something that is not very well advisable. It's not a positive body language. However, well, if you don't want to come out as bossy and in charge, because there are those who do it intentionally, especially there is a certain brand you're trying to build, being a bossy person, and in charge and all, then those ones will want to cross their feet intentionally. But if you really just want to have a regular show, then it's not a body language that will be encouraged. However, it gets worse if your trousers are getting off the ankles. It's not something that you may want. So we just encourage, just don't avoid. Sometimes it's just out of habit, but would encourage you to avoid. If it's for the ladies, we encourage you to sit at a corner. Corner seats are usually great in avoiding, direct angles from very many cameras. And it also gives you a surface of deciding how much of the level of exposure is actually out in the air, because it becomes more pronounced when your skin is exposed out in the air than when it is actually when you're seated on a seat. So you want to ask yourself, how much am I exposing myself? And that in its own really helps you even gain confidence in that. So there's quite a lot that you need to prepare yourself with. There is a preparation of just how much lighting is going to be in the house. there's the lighting, there's a preparation, psychological preparation, that they may want to put a little powder on your face just to regulate how shiny your skin is because of the immense lighting that is in there. You're also likely to want to also prepare yourself psychologically on how many people are likely to be in the room, because sometimes when you've not interacted with the media, we will want to assume that in the or during the show we're only interacting with one or two people. Sometimes it's quite a beehive, you know, and we want to prepare ourselves psychologically. So all that will actually help you calm down. But like I said, this is usually a whole other session, and I may not be able to cover it very deeply or in a very deep way, but I sure hope that we get time to interact. And I know there's so many of us in the forum that possibly have interacted with journalists on day-to-day activities, or it's part of their job actually, and we would appreciate if they can also share some of the tips that have worked for them, even in the chat. So yeah, those are some of the things that have worked for many people and have worked for me too. And I can only hope that they actually are useful to you.
Thank you.
All right. You feel helped?
Yes, a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
That is in case you'd want us to catch up on this. I don't mind. Just drop me a message, drop me a chat, and private chat, and we'll be able to pick it up after this, and I can be able to hold a one-on-one now and get to know exactly where you struggle, get to have a conversation so that I can identify the gaps that you need to have closed. And yeah, it would be great to do that. But the last thing I want to say about it is that calmness also comes with experience. So also do not shy to have more of such engagements, because the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it. But like I said, we can go over that after this. So thank you very much, Tim. I see we are here, and I'm glad to have you. So if you do not mind, I will go to today's presentation, unless, of course, we have someone has a burning question to answer it before we go to today's presentation. Just raise your hand or please let us know it. Thank you. All right. Then I think allow me to share my screen. So I hope we can all get access to my screen. We all can see it, right? Maybe I can just have one confirmation.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So this is where we left it yesterday. We said that we ought to be simple, avoid jargon, be specific, be conversational, avoid redundant language, avoid passive verbs, be personal. And then there is something that we didn't cover, but really it's because I know it's nothing to be labor for us. It's that what we call the medium term, that you ought to select medium or read that labor, and then sorry about that. And then we had humor and proof reading. So today we are going to look at the hook. Who we were doing, because we said for us to have a very effective science communication, we need to consider two things. We need to consider the message, we need to consider the audience, and also the channel. But we said in this training we would not concentrate too much on the channel. We already went through it yesterday. It's not too much, but what takes a lot of skills is you're getting your audience right and getting your message right. But the most challenging is the message. That is where we have dealt on the message. And we see that the message, an effective message, to the way in which, because it's going to get you a following, that is what we're going to. And then we're looking at the hook. The hook is basically how do you eventually impact? How do you eventually get the catch? You know, if you're promoting, for example, family planning, you may be able to reach an audience of maybe 10 million relevant audience, which basically would be women of reproductive age. But how many of what percentage of your audience actually ends up taking the hook or ends up, yielding to the call to action? That is what we are looking at today. And you realize that it is frequently or in many occasions intertwined with the bait. So you'll be seeing the bait coming up from time to time. So we're saying that the hook is that an effective bait is critical for your message to be effective. However, the effectiveness or impact of your message will also highly rely on its execution, or the execution of the message. The level of effectiveness of your message is highly dependent on two factors. That is, the message strategy and the and so be basically to cover Hello, can you hear me, people? Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you. Could we kindly have just a contribution of what we understand to be a message strategy, kindly? Remember, this is an adult class, so we need not be very correct, but we also want to, participate and have a conversation in this. So kindly let us have someone volunteer and share with us what they take a message strategy to be. Thank you. Would you allow me to please call names or call out participants? Please, when I do not feel harassed. I'm just calling this randomly. We could maybe start with Daniel Olila. Daniel, please share with us what you think is a message strategy.
Thank you, Grace. I'll just say a message strategy, I think, is the way someone plans on how to bring out the message, and the different I could say, I'll just say it's the way someone plans to bring out the message, in that it captures the audience and it should be suited for that audience. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Olila. Actually, that is a very good try. It's just the way we execute strategies, be it in business, be it in our studies, how you want to pass your exam and all that. It's how we plan our message, like he has shared, so that our message is able to meet the objective for which it is being drawn. If you remember yesterday, one of us shared that effective messaging actually includes also having an objective that is successfully executed. Right? Message strategy is a guide and how to say it, achieve an ultimate goal. It's
Excuse me, Grace, your internet is breaking. There's an issue with your internet.
U-turn communication. Oh, okay. Let me try to change. Give me a few. How about now? Is it better?
Yes, much better.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. So basically we're trying to say that if your message has not met the intended communication, then we cannot assume, or we cannot actually refer it as effective communication. And that is why we need a strategy to actually do that. Message strategizing, like I said, is a whole other topic So I will not go into drawing message strategy from scratch to end, because again, this would take us a whole day. But you will allow me, because these are skills that will come in handy, to just brush over generally what you need to know about message strategizing and how you can get good at it or better at it. So we are going to start with the fundamentals of message strategies. And one of the things is saying, for you to have an effective message, you need to first have a compelling message. And a compelling message will mainly come from the way you package your message, which is something we dealt with very much yesterday. And this message must also resonate with the target audience, the key target audience. We touched on that again. That if, for instance, you are having a message whose call to action is increase in uptake of family planning options, or whatever they are referred to. Sorry, I'm not, that is not my line of expertise. But if that is your call to action, then you want to ask yourself, then who do I need to reach? It could be that your target is the whole country. It could be that your target is a certain region, but you definitely want to look at the people who really are likely to execute what your call to action is. And this would mainly be women of the childbearing age, or females of the childbearing age, as your primary audience. Although you're also likely to meet other audience that would support the primary audience. So you'd also want to reach even women of outside childbearing age, because basically they also act as advisors to the children of the childbearing age. And you also want to reach the men, because they're the ones who they would play a big role in encouraging their wives, or even allowing, in some instances and cultures, allowing their wives to engage with the family planning methods. Therefore, you need to really ask yourself, who do I need to pick as my primary audience, my secondary audience, and the tertiary audience? I think we covered a bit of that. For those who are joining us today, I hope I'll be able to wrap that up later. But you really need to ask yourself, if this is my primary audience, then is my message resonating with them? Is it relevant? Is it in touch? Is it personal? Does it look natural? Because remember, yesterday we discussed about how important it is to be natural. Natural means relatable to your audience. So these are some of the considerations that you actually want to make. And then we're also saying that you need to have a specific goal or call to action. Basically, what do you want to achieve? And it must be very clear. If your call to action is increase the uptake of family planning methods from X number of women to X number of women within this period, then you need to have it very well pronounced. If your call to action, for instance, is having students want to attend classes, maybe from an attendance rate of this level to the other level, then that also needs to be very well outlined. I'm not so sure how much of a sense communication would need in that, but I just used it as a call to action. So basically, call to action is, at the end of the day, what is your key objective? What do you want me to do? And this is very important in communication in general, but very important and sensitive in science communication. Because remember, in science communication, we said most of the things that we are advocating for or calling to action on are actually very sensitive issues. So it is very important that we craft our message in a way that, sensitive as it might be, we still want results. And we used an example of the male circumcision. By the time that was introduced in the country, it was a very sensitive issue, or the fight against FGM. By the time the fight started, even now, it still remains very sensitive conversation, especially in some cultures. So you want to craft your message that as much as it is very sensitive, you still want people to call to act to the action you're calling them, or you want them to act on the call that you're giving them. So you really have to have it very, very, very well figured out. And we said for it to be effective, please do not have multiple call to actions per message. Let every message have one call to action. And remember, we said yesterday that that is one of the things that actually limits our writing or our engagement as science communicators, because we want to say too many things at the same time, have too many call to actions, because that is what we are used in scientific writing. But for science writing, we are happy to just to have one call to action. Vina, maybe you'd like to ask one of us to mute. That would really help. Then the other fundamental is understanding your target audience. When it comes to understanding your audience, we say that you not only need to understand who they are, but you also need to understand their culture. You need to understand in the first place, why are you calling them to act on this? Why? What has been their biggest hindrance? What has been the biggest gap that they experience? Because that is the one and only way you're actually going to have a successful call to action. For instance, I'll use an example that we used yesterday in a very very many times yesterday. We were asking ourselves, why is it that during COVID-19, people were so good or were really calling into or acting onto the calling of washing hands? Why is it that the hook was so successful? Of course, we know one of it, like we said, was the fear appeal that had been used, that, you know, COVID is killing us and we've got to kick it out of the continent, or it will kick us out of the same. So fear appeal worked a bit. But you remember we also said that in science communication, we also need to achieve sustainability without necessarily using fear appeal. Because fear appeal gets us results, but fear appeal does not, in many cases, sustain the results, right? And that is the same appeal that was used sometimes back on getting people to quit smoking, that smoking cigarettes puts you at risk of lung cancer. And it worked for a bit and the smoking went down for a bit. But you know, people like they adjust to emotions with time. So with time, the fear was no longer working on them, on the populace. And the moment the fear was no longer working, the percentage of smokers actually started surging. And we are having it even now that people are quite aware that smoking actually increases the risk of contracting lung cancer, but they're still smoking. Actually, even people who are very much or highly educated, and some of them who are even in the medical field would better understand this, but they're still smoking. Why? Because the fear is no longer in them. They're no longer having fear instilled in them. And that is what we were discussing, that in science communication, for you to have a sustainable impact, then we need to move from fear appeal as much as possible, and instead dwell on message delivery, how we package it, that it appeals without fear, because that is one of the best ways to have sustainability. Because like we shared yesterday, science communication is basically passing messages that need to be adopted from one generation to another to another. It needs to be passed across. And that is why we need to actually understand not just the composition of your audience, but also their culture, their way of seeing things. You want to ask yourself, why have people not been washing hands? What keeps them from washing hands? Is it that they don't have access to water? Is it that they don't have access to soap? Is it that they do not know the importance of hand washing? Is it that they actually don't take it too seriously? What are the main gaps? Those are the main gaps that you need to establish, and the main reasons why they are not right now acting on your call. And with that, you're going to be able to have a very successful message. I hope that is clear. All right. So now, on effective messaging, again, we're asking ourselves, for you to have a message that is crafted for your audience, and that is going to have your audience respond to the call to action, the specific call to action, you need to use what we call the key messages. We say there is the message, which ought to be one, and each message ought to have one call to action. However, in one message, you may have two or more key messages, but we advise that do not go past 3. Otherwise, you're going to make your your message too complex. So now we are looking at the key messages, and we're saying that the key messages are the main bridges or the main ties between the message and the call to action. And we are quickly going to look at that. How to come up with a key message. And we're saying that the easiest way to describe a key message is basically that thing, let me call it thing, that gets you thinking why, gets you thinking how. Take, for instance, hand washing. Let me use it as an example. Take, for instance, hand washing. Basically, the key message we are having here is we ought to adopt hand washing for the purpose of enhancing personal hygiene, which is a main tool of fighting off the contagious diseases. I don't know. Those who are in that field will tell me, such as COVID-19. So that's our message. Our call to action is wash your hands. What? Sorry, the key message here is
South Africa. Or
okay, thank you. For those who are not muted, kindly remember to mute, please. So so the key messages there, the key messages would be: 1, wash your hands; 2, wash your hands with soap; 3, wash your hands as frequently as possible. Basically, what would take outside communication as key points to deliver the objectives. Wash your hands with soap, wash your hands frequently. And I have put that in that order intentionally, because washing hands is one of the easiest key message to deliver, because you're not telling them you need soap, and you're not giving them the burden of frequency. So if you can get them to wash hands, even if they don't wash hands frequently, even if they do not wash hands with soap, you still have a high level of success, or a certain degree of success. So your first key message ought to be wash your hands. And it is the easiest to achieve because, like I said, it is coming with a very light burden, especially for a community that is not used to washing their hands all the time, and communities that are not used to washing hands with soap. So wash your hands. And the second key message would be wash your hands with soap. Now, after you're washing hands, remember to use soap. So there are those who will still wash hands and still not wash hands with soap. But there are those who will wash hands and remember, oh, I'm supposed to use soap. And then there's now the frequency. Wash your hands as frequently as you need to, And now we will go into the indicators of now the frequency of the washing of your hands. What dictates how frequently you need to wash your hands after you touch your body, maybe your face and all that, after you touch surfaces that you think are contaminated, after maybe you shake hands, that is if you're looking keenly at COVID-19 and all that. So now you will now go to break it down, but later. But you need to have those as your key messages. And remember we said, please don't go above 3. You're going to make this message too complex. And if time and resources allow, it would actually be good if you had one key message at a time. But sometimes resources do not allow. So we are forced to have a very creative way of having 2 or 3 key messages in one message with one call to action, but still hold the interest of the audience. It takes quite a lot of creativity. Sometimes it will take dramatizing. Sometimes, more so in children, it will require the use of like cartoons. Often we want to use something like posters if the rest are not working. It works a lot better than maybe using verbal, because verbal would really get you sweating to get the attention, to pass all the 3 messages across within one message. All right. So how do you now get into crafting a key message? We have said we need one call to action. We have said that we need a few key messages. But how about the message now? For the message to be effective, and remember we're saying that we can't have an effective hook unless we have an effective message. We're saying that we need to obey the 5 W's and H, and we also need to put in mind the 7 C's and T. So the 5 W's and H. The 5 W's and H is just basically asking yourself, does my message tell who? The who part. Does my message talk of the what part? Does my message talk of where, when, why, and how? All right. These may not be very necessary in scientific writing. Scientific writing will mainly capture on the what and how. And you will have a very complete scientific message with what and how. You can have little bits of why, when, where. They might not be very pronounced. But for science writing, remember we said yesterday, it ought to be conversational. So for science writing, we need to know who are we talking about here? Are we talking about a certain government? Are we talking about a certain group of farmers? Are we talking about a certain group of women or men or children? Who are we talking about here? It really needs to be clear. What are we talking about? What was happening, or what happened, or what did they do, and all that? The what aspect also needs to be very pronounced, and we'll be seeing that when we'll be going into the practical part of writing. And then we also need to ask ourselves, does the question also answer the where? Where did it happen? You remember when we were talking about the example of trigger yesterday, we said that we need to know where is this relevant? Where are we talking about? Where is this trigger? Where? It really needs to be very clear as what? What is trigger? You know, we also use the example of getting HIV testing and say that we need to ask ourselves, why do I need to get tested? Where do I get tested? You know, when do I actually get tested? When is it best to get tested? All right. And then you remember we also asked how, because the why has been very prominent in the campaigns for HIV testing. The whys is usually very prominent. The who's is very prominent. The what is very prominent. But okay, when is also prominent in to some extent, but the where and the how. The where and the how have not been very prominent, and I think we went through that message. I will not belabor it. But all that needs to be very clear for people to call to action. I need to know exactly where I'm going to get this vaccine, how much is it likely to cost me, how long is it likely to take, you know, who is likely to even facilitate me to do it, you know. And even when we're talking about the self-testing kits, I think we talked about it for quite some time. Now take our discussion yesterday and fit it there and ask what made me, because I used myself as an example, not act into the call of actually HIV testing. And you'll see, basically it's because there was a gap in the message of where, how, and why, not actually why, and what, when it came to the self-testing kits as per our yesterday's discussion. And then we have the 7 C's, and T. Basically, we say that on top of obeying the 5 W's and H, our message also needs to be clear, concise, concrete, correct, coherent, complete, and timely. Clear, it's basically making sure that the message is easily identified. That is why we talked about being catchy and relevant, and also needs to be understood. We talked of simplicity. The message needs to be very short and straight to the point. We belabored this yesterday, that the only time you buy time is when you are actually going around a very sensitive issue. There you're allowed to actually buy time. Otherwise, go straight to the point. The shorter, the better. And then we have the factor of it being concrete, that we need cemented facts, examples, or explanations. But remember, we said that we need to not again want to carry the burden of proof, is not what is required of us. So we need to give the facts, yes, because again, at the end of the day, this is science communication, it will rely on facts. But we also can do it better by just using examples for our explanations. And a little explanations, remember we said that where we do not have another word to replace our jargon, we can do it with a very simple explanation, just to make the message easily understood. And then we said correct, that the message needs to be accurate in both information and grammar. Then we have coherent, that the flow of information should be presented in a logical sequence. And this is one thing that we need to bear in mind, both in written and verbal communication, that the logical sequence is very important. We need to carefully move from one point to another because, like we said, science communication covers topics that could be very complex to the ordinary mwananchi, the ordinary person. Therefore, if we are not very organized, if we keep moving from one point to another, then we may end up confusing people more than helping them understand our message. So let us move from one point to another. What is cancer? What are cancerous cells? Why are they dangerous? You know, what do we need to do about, you know, early detection of cancer in a very systematic way? Because if we start by why cancer is dangerous, before we go into what is cancer, we are either going to make the message very, very complex, because people will be trained to understand what is cancer. I mean, what is cancer, when at the same time they are having to figure out on why it is dangerous. And you know, like when you say the word cancer, even without anybody knowing what it is, the brain always has a way of filling in the gaps. You know, they will always they will have filled in their minds what cancer is, and by the time you come now to correct that, it's a bit of a mix. So let us have a very logical sequence. The other point is being complete, having enough information so that the audience can understand. We need to be short but complete, and that is why we talked of the 5 W's and H, because it is the 5 W's and H that actually make our conversations or our message complete. If any of the three the 3 sections are not very well covered, then you can be sure your message is not going to be very complete. And then we have courteous, that our message needs to be polite and in a professional tone. And then lastly, the message needs to be timely, both chronologically and psychologically. Basically, what we are trying to say is that we need to deliver the message when it is ready to be delivered. And being timely is something that we really struggle with. And I'm sure some of us are really going or already struggling with, because how we consider timely out here is not how we consider timely in science. I'll use an example. In one of my previous assignments, I really dealt with a lot of content in agriculture. Agricultural, you know, conventional way of producing crops, and also biotechnology and other innovations in farming. And often we would push content into the media, believing that this was the right time. For instance, content to do with seed selection, you know, just guiding farmers on the best seed to select for various areas and all that. So scientifically, when it comes to science, and you're looking at, and also in development, when is the best time for us to push this message so that we have great impact? And for us, it made a lot of sense that we push this message a few weeks before the rains, because that way people will have time, or farmers will have time to actually look at the meteorological report, see how much rain they're likely to receive, when they're likely to receive it, and use that information to now be guided into the right seed to plant, and plant it before the rains come, because it's one of the things we are recommending, especially for the areas with average to below average amounts of rainfall. And every time we never go through the media. And at one point, I remember sitting down with one of the decision makers there and telling them, you know what, we know that you want us to push this content during the rain, but really it's not making sense to us, because why would I be passing a message on seed selection when already it has happened? You know, like really what will I achieve when the rains have already come and they have planted? And the gentleman was very polite to me, and he told me, you know, Grace, one thing you need to understand is that your timeliness is not my timeliness. And one thing I can guarantee you is if we publish that content today, very few people are going to read it. And I thought he was crazy. So we did a test on it. And anything that came before the rains really was not getting a lot of reading. Most people were still on politics and, you know, man bite a dog. And very few clicks and very little feedback was coming on that material, with that material. And some of it we actually did through newspaper articles. But what happened is that after it rained, after it's already rained and people have actually planted, that is when we started now getting feedback. You know, what did you say about seed? You know, I think I planted the wrong one. In that situation, maybe I should have planted this one. Where would I have gotten this? You know, they have already planted, but because it's during the rainy season, that's when most of them are reading those papers, which, by the way, already are already, you know, past the date of publishing. But they found the content interesting and they grabbed the old paper and they read and they wrote back, you know, and it really took quite a bit of experiments for me to be convinced that farmers will not read much about farming or about agriculture until it's mostly crop growing, until it's raining, you know. And what the media wants, because we are also in business, we want the clicks, we want the feedback, we want people, you know, interacting with our content. So if people are not interacting with our content, like we said yesterday, then we are not likely to push that content. Therefore, we need to ask ourselves, are people psychologically ready to handle this? And that is why you realize that most successful science messaging is done during crisis, which is unfortunate. Like, take, for instance, the aspect of something like Ebola. Ebola is there in our neighboring countries, and those people who have interacted with issues of One Health and issues maybe zoonotic diseases advise us that Kenya actually is one of the risky, like our risk level is very high. Let me put it that way. But we have tried to push the message on Ebola in Kenya, Ebola control, prevention, and all that. And I can tell you, it's not been very successful. And the reason why it's not been very successful, it's because, one, thankfully, our neighbors have really been able to contain the disease. So we've not had incidences in the country. We've not had a flare up in the country. So Kenyans still don't consider it as a risk. And also, two, Kenyans have a lot of other things to worry about. You know, like we said yesterday, really they have a lot of other things. So they have other things they would rather listen to, like the price of fuel. So it's not been very successful. But I can assure you, if we had a scare today of an Ebola case in the country, God forbid, but if we had a scare, and with that scare, we pushed through content on Ebola or other One Health issues, it would really be highly taken up. And that is why in some areas, people will actually set up scares to push up messages. It's not always advisable. It's not always considered ethical. The reason I say always is because there are some areas that it's actually allowed and considered ethical, especially if you're pushing out a message that has to do with the security of the general public. A few people may get hurt in the process of the scare and all that, but at the end of the day, many people are vigilant, and it saves a lot more should something similar get to happen. Therefore, as much as we have Ebola is one of the potential risks in the country, we still prepare materials, we still put together content, you know, to be able to push through the population should the time come, should the need arise. But right now we are not very keen to release it because we know that very many people will not be able to, will not be in a position to take it up. And that is why we are saying that your message needs to be timely, both chronologically and psychologically. Read the psychological timing of your audience. Are they psychologically ready to pursue this message? It's one of the things that we really, really need to think about. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been quite a bit of me talking. I propose that we could have just a 5 minutes break, a health break, and then Okay, good morning, everyone. Kindly let's do a quick check-in. So just to be sure that we are all in as we commence. Apologies, that was quite dramatic. That is the break, but I hope we are well and all back. Kindly let's do a quick check-in as we did yesterday.
Good morning,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Good morning.
I am Maria Kiboi. I apologize. I just joined at around 10. I had an emergency today morning, but now I'm well. Thank you. Happy to
You're
join
welcome.
today. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Check-in. Basically, check-in is just us knowing that it's not your machine running, that you're behind it. You could do it by just unmuting, saying hi to the team, or you could do it by way of just type your check-in comments chat box.
Okay, hello.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi, how are you, Tofik? Thank you. I think Kimngetich is also here. Benjamin is also here. Anyone else? Thank you, Eric. If we could get to 10, it would be worth it. Thank you, Kwavai. Tofik, maybe you may need to have your mic muted. You forgot to mute yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Julius. I want at least a group of 10. No, the challenging thing with virtual trainings is that you could actually be speaking to people's devices while they are away. So we work and you're well, and we are together. That's all the check-in is about. Ogata, are you around? Malika? Dio?
Yes, I am around.
Thank you. Pamela,
I'm here. I'm in.
Thank
However, I'm
you.
double working too.
No, okay, as long as you can follow it alive. Don't worry. All right. Anyone else who is in, please let us know you're in. Julius, I see you're here.
Hi, I'm around.
Thank you. I think I saw Catherine somewhere. Catherine, where are you? Evans? Ademola, are you with us?
Hi, I'm around.
Thank you. All right. Then I think and welcome back. So if you allow me, I'm going to again share my screen. And as I share my screen, I hope that we can take the next 5 minutes to actually ask questions, comments, and just I also get to hear how much we are together or not together. Are we together so far? And do we have anybody with the question? Maybe the next just 5 minutes. Remember, we said this is a master class. Most of the things here are to apply, and you cannot apply well unless you test them. We have 5 minutes for that.
Can I go, Daktari? Hello?
Grace dropped off for a bit. Let's just give her a minute to join us.
Sorry, I seem to have missed you. Did you finally ask your question?
Oh, I didn't ask because I didn't hear you talking, so I thought maybe you had a problem. So are you able to hear me? Okay, fine. So for me, I think I missed a lot yesterday. Yesterday, I had a lot of, we had a supervision with the NASCOP. We were moving around the facilities. So I was unable to join because now if you are doing a quality DQA, so data quality assurance, you can't, and you have external supervisor, you can't log in, you put earphone, yet you concentrate in other things. So I think I missed a lot, but today I've really learned a lot because for me, there are sometimes I'm struggling even to come with just a topic. Maybe I can see some problem on the ground, but I've been really struggling. How can I come out with a topic, a relevant topic? Which can communicate effectively? How can I make it? But now just through the slides you have taken us through. In fact, I've even managed to draft even just a problem ingine hapo. So for me, I don't have a question, but for me, I can say that I'm really learning a lot. And I'll request you to share with me your number because right now I need to do a lot of papers. And also, if I can also do a publication. So I think we can even talk aside of this. So that is what I'm asking you, if you'll be able to share through Lavuna, and also if we can have such like this. The only challenge during weekdays, because we are people working for some other people. So when they see you concentrating on your things, it brings a lot of issues. So I'm asking also this, if there is another training, if we can schedule it, not during daytime, because it is very challenging, especially with us working for non-governmental organization. Your performance matters a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I really do understand where you're coming from. And for all others who may be going through the same and may not have the opportunity to express themselves here, don't worry, I'm going to share my number through the chat, and feel free to reach to me directly or through TCC. They'll always direct the communication to me, and I would be happy to actually pick up the conversations and help each and every one of you in places where you could be struggling. So thank you, Pamela. I'm also happy to know that you found this useful, and I'll be able to share also the notes and the presentations. We will also be sharing the recording with all of us at the end of the day. So those who missed something yesterday can possibly be able to listen through and get back in case they have any question. Ours usually it's an ongoing engagement. It's not a one-off. So no need to feel burdened if you need to reach back and say, you know, I attended your training and I got stuck in this, I'm trying to resolve this. How can I go about it? We handle that a lot, and I'm happy to do that. As some other people, when you have had something, say for instance, making a presentation, and you're like, I want to go through this and be sure that I'll get it, and you want a short catch-up call, I'm more than happy to do that. So please don't feel burdened. As long as you've come through our hands, we are more than happy to support. All right, so that's Pamela's case and maybe a few others. Do you have anybody else who has something they would like to express? This is our class. Please feel free. All right, so with that, I will, assume that we are all fine. And I'm sharing my screen. Thank you. I'm wondering whether
We can't hear you. Your internet is breaking, please.
how hello, Tim? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, you are audible.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Really, I do not understand what is going on with our Wi-Fi here today. I can only ask that you kindly bear with me, as I hope now the issue is totally sorted out. All right. So, like I was saying, it's a support that we are more than happy to give all of us for those who may need it. But as we go into that, please allow me to now move back to where we were so that we can be able to complete that. And I would really appreciate if we can have some confirm that you can actually now see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. All right. So we were, before the break, we were looking at the key messages and how to formulate the key messages. And we said that we looked at the 7 C's and basically the 5 W's and H and the 7 C's and T. And I think that is what ought to have been the end of day 1. As you may notice, it has taken quite some time. We've rushed this as much as possible, but rush in a quality way so that all of us can be able to achieve what we intended to achieve by end of today. So today, basically, we are looking at writing. Remember, we talked about channels. Yesterday, we took quite some time discussing the several. We said we now see life taking a particular pattern of people being required to share quite a bit of science communication through social media, through mainstream media, which includes television and TVs. We've also seen people sharing quite a bit of science content through YouTube and all that. We also have the newspapers, which very many of us are fond of writing and all that. And today, and posters. Now, not the scientific communication posters, but the science communication posters. But today we are going to look at 2 of the most very common channels that we use of communication. Today we'll be looking at op-eds, and then we'll be looking at feature stories. So maybe as we go into op-eds, I would like to open the room. I get to hear who has an experience with op-eds and how is their experience. So if you allow me, we can take the next 10 minutes on that. Please just unmute and share with us your experience. Anyone who has interacted with opinion editorials? Immaculate Odero, have you interacted with opinion editorials? Jimmy Mamulu, Kingsley, Lemayan, Kimngetich?
Not quite, please.
All right.
I haven't.
Marie, all right, thank you. Mercy, have you interacted with opinion editorials? Mercy Kiboy.
No, thank you.
All right.
No, even me, Maria, no.
But I'm to be someone who has at least tried an op-ed before in this team. This is a great team. Adam Kiganja. Kovai.
Hello.
Yes, please. Have you interacted with op-eds, Benjamin?
I've had one time, and it's also part of the method I used in my master's. Like, it's not like it's not like the method, but it's one of the requirements of design science that you should share with the public the outcome of your research. So a news outlet had to share an opinion about an issue, but it wasn't formally done to say it's an op-ed, but it was just like, this was an opinion about a topic, and it was discussed, and then there was some form of interaction thereafter. But I think typically it could have been maybe a newspaper article or an issue just advocating towards a particular discovery of my scientific finding of my master's thesis in this case. That's the closest I got to something similar to this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Benjamin. And before you go, please let us know, how was your experience? Which challenges did you face?
Well, the challenge I had at that time is sharing. I mean, my thesis was about a 150-page document that had, and I needed to kind of, I don't want to say water it down, but make it a little more simple, and also take up an opinion that I achieved out of that research to share with the general public in a way advocating for a particular point that I've discovered from my scientific study. I mean, people had different opinions, but I needed to put it out in a way that it was welcoming to everybody, even if they don't know the background or the amount of work I did. But I put in some scientific citations in a way that is publicly digestible, and to give some level of legitimacy to my work, to show that I'm not just talking from sleep. I've done significant work in this area, and then to also share context-based details to let them know that it applies to the environment, to our community that I was speaking out for. Yeah.
There is with my comments. I would like to encourage anyone else who's had an opinion, editorial, or interacted with op-eds in one way, whether that's successfully or not, whether it was published or not, but at least you had an interaction with one from you, not with your friends, or one that is already published, so that we can know how to basically, package this message, because it's one of the things that many of us will be doing, but I want to know which gaps I'm starting in filling, even as you go into this. Thank you.
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
Maybe, yes, I'm Pamela. Maybe the word is what is not well elaborated, because when you say opinion, for me, it is confusing me because I don't understand it well. I haven't come across this word. But if you can explain it well, then at least we'll be able, because for me, I did my master's, and I did thesis, and I published it, because for you to graduate, you have to publish a paper. So maybe we need just to understand what you mean by opinion editorial, so that at least people like me can talk. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pamela. I'm glad you put out that. Now, even as we go into this, I am going to start by helping us appreciate one thing. I'm going to ask us to try and consider that we are talking about science communication. And this has nothing to do with the comments they have given. I'm just basically starting my lecture. So I'll be going into weighing in on what my brother Benjamin has shared. But before that, let us remember that we are talking about science communication and not scientific communication. Scientific communication is what we do from day to day. It's our job mainly as researchers to communicate with our peers on matters science. That is why we have scientific writing. Basically, you're writing, but you're writing matter science because the way you write on matter science is not the way you write on matters non-science. But now we are talking about science communication, which for those who did not make to join us yesterday, we agreed that it is the communication of science matter to the general public, all right? And we see that part of being successful in science communication is communicating science issues without the science in it. In that, you have to strip your message of science and still remain with the message which bears a concept of science, right? And that's what we were talking about yesterday on how to go about it, how to eliminate jargon, how to divert from the burden of proof that is required when we are writing our science papers, you know, how to basically simplify the language and not necessarily tie the message down because people cannot unwrap the terms that we use. But there's something else that I need to mention here. That if we want to be successful in science communication, which basically means successful in communicating with people who then appreciate the message. Because one of the things that makes it very difficult for us to communicate very well in public is because as scientists, we are cut in such a way, or we are cast in such a way that, not the cast of you, but of A, in such a way that we, like we said yesterday, we constantly want to claim our place on the table, constantly. So we want to look like a researcher worth his or her salt. We want to actually prove that, you know, we have generated new knowledge, that we are actually serious and we know how to do it, and that our information is verifiable, you know? And with that burden of proof, which is part of our life as researchers, it makes it very difficult for us to communicate with the general public, because now we start looking like people who are out to prove a point. And the moment you come out of in the public as someone who is to prove a point, you either look too complex or just the doctor that you are. And what do I mean by that? I mean that let me assume that many of us are, or a good portion of us are Kenyans. And allow me, just for the sake of illustration, use the example a brilliant lawyer, a brilliant orator. But I don't know how many of us have had success interacting with his content. And I'm doing this with all due respect. I'm not like dressing him down or anything. We're just discussing content on science communication. Not that Lumumba does a lot of science communication, often it is not. But he has a way of presenting very simple facts, very, very simple facts in very complex language. And many of us find it very difficult to actually understand him and even figure out his ways, you know? And not his ways, actually, the meaning or the point that he's trying to pass across. And therefore, many of us will actually listen to him now, not to get the point he's trying to make, but to acquire a few, you know, grammar words and all that, and sometimes just for fun. And that is what sometimes happens to us when we are communicating science. We will be saying very common things, but saying them in such an uncommon way that people will actually look at us and marvel at a brilliant doctor, not really understand what the doctor is trying to pass across, and not care to understand what the doctor is trying to pass across, because right from the start, the language you're using and the complexity of the language just tell the audience that they cannot relate to your content, but they think you're brilliant, so they're going to listen to you. And maybe they could learn a few science words from your presentation or from your talk or from your show or from your writer, which will most likely not be published by the mainstream media, because for them, they really are looking at something that is easily understandable. So that is what I'm trying to pass across, that we need to really disassociate ourselves with the message, so that, because when you disassociate yourself, you no longer have the burden of coming up with a very weighty message. Because you see, in scientific communication, the reason why we are struggling to come up with very weighty communication is because we will be associated with that, with the points that we are trying to pass across, and we want to be seen as someone who actually puts across very weighty and very important points. And that's not the point when we are communicating with the public. That is just what I felt it's important for me to point out, even as you on this, that we need to go it easy when we are communicating with the general public. And now to the issues of op-eds. Op-eds basically are what we call opinion editorials. It's just short form. There are also those who call them as open editorials, but generally many people consider them as open editorials. Now, an open editorial is basically an opinion piece. It's an opinion piece on a subject or a matter that you feel is important to the public, and that you also feel can actually help the public in one way or another. I will give you an example. When there were issues on hyenas around in some parts of the country, we saw many people coming in to weigh in on that topic. And for any of us that could maybe be a vet or in KWS or something, anything that has to do with wildlife, that would have been an opportune time for them to put out content. Remember, we talked about timing on opinions about wildlife, but more so specifically on hyena, because that was a time when really people were. But we're also saying that, like we said yesterday, that these op-eds need to be relevant. These op-eds need to hit home. Whatever point you're trying to pass across must be relatable. And that is why we are saying it needs to be a newsworthy topic. In that, for instance, if it's during the drought and you're writing an opinion about aflatoxin, for instance, it may not make a lot of impact because right by then what people are concerned about is how to survive the drought. Actually, some of them are happy to get even those aflatoxin-ridden grains for food at that particular time. So it's really not many people's business to be reading about aflatoxin when the country is grappling with drought, for instance. So it needs to be something that is really in line with the spirit of the country or the people of the region at that particular time. And we are saying that this is not a research paper and must not necessarily be a research finding. If, for instance, like my brother Benjamin has shared, you have done research, and one of the things that you need to do for you to qualify as having finished your studies is, or having completed your studies, sorry, is to publish to the public. Now you can look at what is going on and ask yourself, out of my study, what can I actually use to educate the public on? You know? And you can look at your study and look at what is going on in the news and maybe scan through the internet, see what has been trending around, and now draft or craft a message from your research. However, if it's not for study purposes, your opinion need not be out of any research you did directly. It's just an opinion of something that you know is actually a fact. For instance, you must not have done a paper on aflatoxin for you to write about aflatoxin, as long as it's something that is covered within your knowledge base. You know, it's something you have an authority speaking about from different angles. Whether you're speaking about aflatoxin and its effect to human health and animal health, or you're talking about aflatoxin in regard to post-harvest losses, whichever you're looking at, but it is within your area of expertise or within your knowledge base, then please go ahead and share. So that is basically what we're saying, that it means it needs to be factual. It needs to be something that is, covered within your area of expertise. Although there are those who write opinion editorials basically out of their own opinion, maybe it's politics or social issues. Maybe at what age should a woman get married and all that. Those are just their own opinion editorials, but those ones now are not writing on science. So for us who are writing on science, then our pieces need to be factual. That is just what I'm trying to say, but they need necessarily not be part of your research. Now, sorry, let me go back to opinion editorials. And maybe many people may ask, what are opinion editorials? I just remembered one of us asked that. And opinion editorials just are mainly publications that are done in newspapers, and they are to express an opinion on something or a matter. Sometimes it's usually a matter of national dialogue or dialogue to some extent, whether it's national or not, but something that is actually you're weighing in on a matter or on a conversation that is ongoing. And we have people who are very good at citing opportunities for op-eds, even from news. Maybe the news items or one of the news item is about maybe El Nino, for instance, and that is your area of expertise, and maybe you want to educate the public on actually what causes El Nino, or maybe how to better use the El Nino, the water that is coming out of the El Nino rains. Maybe you can take that time maybe to share, for example, on the disease outbreaks, waterborne disease outbreaks that are expected with the rains, and how to avoid them and how to control them, that being your area of expertise. So it must not be a research you've done, but really it is something that ought to be relevant to what you do, because you're writing as an expert from the point of, I know this, and this is what I would like you to know. On the placement of the editorials, really note that it is very important, but it literally comes, or it is usually placed just opposite the editorial page. That tells you it is a very important piece of writing, because when you're reading newspapers, usually the most important news articles are the ones which are fitted in the few first pages and the few last pages. Mostly the last page actually, and the first pages, because those are the pages that most people get to look at. All right. What are opinion editorials not? All right. First, they're not letters to the editor. We often read letters to the editor, but we're saying these are not letters to the editor. And we're also noting that they shouldn't be longer than 900 words. Actually, on estimate, I encourage people to keep it at between 750 to 800 words for the purpose of allowing for some editing, but they shouldn't be very lengthy because these are not actually features. When we come to features, we'll realize that they are a bit longer. Yeah, so I hope you understand what we are talking about even before we go into the real discussion of opinion editorials. And I would like us to take some time before we go into how to identify topics, because I know identifying topics of how to write an opinion editorial is something that actually keeps us from writing them. So allow me to get to know whether you really now understand what we are talking about when we talk about opinion editorials, so that I know whether I need to clarify it better. Anyone can just unmute and share with us whether you really get what we are talking about, whether you have an example of an opinion editorial in mind. It could be from a paper that is sitting next to you. It could be from one that you read, or from one that you actually interacted with at one point in your life. Thank you. Anyone, please? I know this could be feeling a bit technical now. Yesterday was a bit easy. We were going through general communication. Now this is getting a little more hands-on, a little more technical, but do not get overwhelmed. By the time we finish this, you realize that it will actually be better than it feels today. So just unmute yourself and let us know.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Omondi, I can hear you.
Now, my question is, well, while I've understood what you are saying, but when you say we are writing to the public and we need to keep it simple at the level at which the public understands it, we also have to realize that this public is stratified. We have both intellectuals, we have educated people, we have uneducated people. So when you oversimplify a write-up for the general public, which we tend to take as the illiterate public, but in the public, they are the educated people. And they are those people who are also professionals, very highly professional in their fields. When this person who is very highly professional in his field reads that piece which you have written, which you have broken down to the general public, my worry is what will be his reaction? Won't they think that you are not very serious?
Thank you very much, Amondi. Allow me to ask. I'm actually laughing because I can't tell you how badly I struggled with that thought. I really, it's one of the things that I really struggled in earlier in my writing. And like I said, having come also from the research world, having been a researcher for some years, and now I'm coming down to now be a science writer, work in the media house and all that. So I can't just tell you just how much I struggled with it. So you're reminding me, of my former me. But allow me to ask just one more question. Did you make it to join us yesterday?
No. Yesterday I was unfortunately stuck with my students.
No, it is okay. We understand. The reason why I was asking this is because I wanted to measure whether maybe I did not cover that sufficiently yesterday, or maybe it's that you completely lost it. Now, I mean, you're completely having it new for just clarification. So yesterday we covered that quite a bit, and I'm going to go through it again for the benefit of those who may not have been here yesterday, and also those who maybe did not get it right yesterday. Now, allow me to put it this way, that exactly is what keeps us from writing to the public as scientists. That thought that you have expressed to us, and thank you for doing so, is actually what makes our writing to the public very complex. And I tried to demystify that as just something that happens in our brains that really is not a reality on the ground. And this is my argument. In the first place, allow me, please, to just use of your experience to drive home a point and ask you this. When was the last time, what is your area of expertise in the first place, kindly, so that I can see whether I can use very relevant examples?
Physical chemistry.
Physical chemistry, thank you.
Yes.
When was the last time that you actually grabbed a paper, not a research journal, a national paper, newspaper that is, and read an article that was written on anything to do with chemistry?
To be honest, I've not. I've only read topical political issues.
Thank you. Thank you. And when was the last time you actually went on the internet or sat down on your TV and read on a topic that has to do with something as basic as soap making? I believe this, you say these liquid soaps that we are making, I think that has an element of chemistry. Am I wrong? Doc?
You are very right.
Do you remember any time that you have sat down and maybe watched a video on how to mix those chemicals to make liquid soap for home use?
Yes, that I've done. I think as I think even a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And do you remember who had actually put this content onto the public? Sorry, I'm not grilling you. There is a point I'll be making at the end of this. So kindly just follow it through with me. There's a point I'll be making to you at the end of this. Do you remember who had done?
I didn't quite check the person. It looked like half layman and half scientist.
But you don't remember even checking the name, right?
Yes, I did not quite check the name.
Thank you. Now, I think, Doc, the point I'm trying to make is this, that out here, even experts like you don't actually take life too seriously. Out here, we take life very seriously in our labs. We take life very seriously in the conference halls, with our discussions with our peers. But the moment we get off our lab coat and we are off campus, we become regular wananchis. We read about politics, how to grill yams, and how to help your babies with their studies. And that's just life. And the point I'm trying to make here is that the scientists that we are so worried would be reading about our work will actually not be reading our work, because they will be reading about politics and beauty and fashion. Because of this, of our research labs, people are actually not taking life as seriously as we do. And the point I'm trying to make is this, and it is something that you really need to sit down as an individual every time you come into writing for communication, especially for general audience, especially the first few days, and ask yourself, in the whole of this universe, how many, I don't know whether you're called chemists, sorry, how many chemists do I know? And how many are even likely to come across this paper? How many are even likely to read this paper? And trust you me, you realize you are holding yourself back, trying to address two people, because that is what makes us write very complex papers. You want to write a paper that when Grace reads, she really thinks, wow, Doc really does some work here. But do you know Grace might never read that paper? And even if Grace, assuming that Grace is a chemist like you, even if Grace read that paper, she would really never benefit out of the content, because what you are writing, she already knows. She's your peer. She already knows. So why are you writing a paper about soap making if Grace is your target audience? Why are you doing that? Because she already knows. Perhaps what Grace would be interested in is a new finding about a certain chemical that actually changes the properties of the soap that you make. What Grace would be interested to know is maybe that someone has actually tested the effect of this soap on fabric, and they want to know that. But you see, that is not going to go into a national paper. That is now going to go into a scientific paper, into a research piece that now is going into a journal. And out here, we are not talking about journals. We are talking about life. That what you know, not the new findings you have or the new findings you will have tomorrow, but what you know today can actually help someone hack life in an easier way tomorrow. And we are talking something as simple as washing your hands. Let's see how much impact that hand washing has on the quality of life that we have today. And yet it is something that we have known all along, but nobody really had the burden of educating people about the importance of hand washing. But see the impact it has in our life. See how drastically it reduced, is it communicable diseases or what? I don't know, these diseases that are easily spread through, poor human hygiene and human to human interactions, Now, see how much impact it had, even on something like colds and coughs, they went down drastically. Just out of a very simple skill, hand work. And that's what we were saying yesterday. The reason why we are not helping this country or this continent is because we think that we need to prove to the public we are very important, we are very knowledgeable, we are very well learned, and it is fine. Only that they already know. The moment they see done by Dr. So-and-so, they already trust you. They don't need your credentials. They're not testing how much you know or what qualified of a chemist you are. They already believe that you're an expert in your area, and all they want is not a research paper. It's just one thing that can help them hack life. One thing that would actually change the quality of their lives to the positive. That is what they are looking for, and that is what we need to keep at the back of our minds, is what the general public is looking at. The second point I want to make is this. Yesterday, I really had an interesting time with the doctors in the house. We had a few in the house. I hope even today they were. And I confess that I've interacted with medical doctors for quite a while and written quite some papers, health matters and all that. However, even yesterday, I had to ask someone what, because I also got it wrong. Actually, I had heard the words gastro something. I was told what it means yesterday. It still didn't stick in my mind. And oncology, and I was even mixing them up. That was yesterday. And at one point, I had to go like, no, wait, I think I mixed up. Who actually is an oncologist and who is a gastro something, I don't remember it. And someone had to explain to me. And guess what? I am not a medical doctor, absolutely not. But I have interacted with them quite a bit. So I know quite above the average mwananchi about medical issues and all that. I can be able to see the active ingredient of a drug and the drug combinations and all that, and try to make something out of it. I know quite a bit health and disease management and all that. Not that I have studied medicine, but because of the interaction I've had. And yet, I keep getting things wrong. I keep mixing things. And I'm a researcher in my own field, but I keep mixing things up. Now, imagine of a doctor who will be writing a piece thinking there are so many literate people in the country who are going to read my paper, and they have me in mind. They are wrong. I'm literate. I'm an expert in my own area, but I am definitely not a medical person. I'm not a medic. So there is a lot that I'm going to learn even without critiquing what they have done. And that's what we were saying. We need to know that we have a very, very literate populace, but these literate populace are actually not as literate when it comes to your area of expertise. The only reason that you think people are very literate in your area of expertise is because they're the people you associate with. Because science is basically cocooned. You go to a college where the students are mainly pursuing science subjects. You go to conferences where people are basically pursuing the same area of interest, And that's why we say when it comes to science, you already have an audience because scientists happen to congregate and gather together. But out here, we have very literate people, actually very literate. But trust you me, they are not as literate when it comes to your area of expertise. They are not as informed. And that is why we said, let us try to shed off the burden of proof. Let us know that what the society needs of you, and the society includes me, includes me. What I want to know from a researcher is that oven grilled potatoes are healthier than air fried potatoes. Why? Because there is some component. Now I don't remember even what I was told it is. I only remember how it was spelled, but I'm not sure I would get it right. That is suspected to be one of the components that trigger cancer, that research has shown to be higher in air-grilled food than in conventionally grilled food. Air-fried food, air-fried food have lower cholesterol, that is bad cholesterol, but they have higher of that component. So you're better off sticking with the conventional way of grilling or deep frying your food. That is very helpful. Simple as it is. I go home knowing there is some starch that needs not be burnt under very high heat, because when it is burnt under very high heat, this component actually ends up appearing in the food because it is usually found in, carbohydrates that are burnt under very high food. I know this could be in your area of expertise, so I don't know, which is not good for your health. And you know what? I am not using that information to go and make a presentation somewhere. So I'm perfectly okay with not remembering all the facts. I'm perfectly comfortable with actually not knowing what this component is called. I'm comfortable by the way, because it's not my area of expertise and I'm not to make any impression. But that knowledge has really helped me. So the moment you do lab tests and you realize that air-fried food or air-fried carbohydrates are not as good for consumption for human beings, you need not sit down and wait for 1,000 people to come and read through your paper. No. As long as it is factual and it's agreeable by your peers in your area of industry, just come down and advise us, because you'll be saving very many of us probably from cancer. But you having the fear of, how about a chemist reading this? They will not even find anything to fault, because when you're writing to us, we are saying don't use very complex science language. Don't even tell us, when this element comes into heat above these degrees, it turns into this, which later combines with oxygen to turn into this, which when consumed, it is actually bound on the blood and find itself on these and these organs, and therefore is likely to change the cells this way, therefore affecting, the cells. And, we may not want to know the background of all that. And we used a few examples to actually validate that by saying that there are so many people who are actually buying and driving cars without having an idea, a single idea of how the car engine runs. They absolutely have no idea. They just know, you know what? You put the key in, you step on the pedal, They know how to operate the car, but they really don't know the intricacies of how the steering wheel actually ends up turning the wheels. They actually don't, they have never studied why one steering wheel that is not even centrally placed actually ends up turning 4 wheels at the same time, you know, but we still drive. We don't know what those pistons are and how actually that fuel is burnt to turn into energy. Imagine we don't, but we still buy cars and drive them years on end. We use light every day, and all we know is that you switch on the button, the switch, I mean, the lights come on. When you don't need the light, because the bills are gonna go high, you put you place your finger on the switch again, and the lights are off. And we never burden ourselves with, no. Before I use this thing, I need to know how the bulb works. No, we don't do that. If you go to maybe physicians, those guys who study physics and all that, they may be interested, but we are not. For us, we just want to know, oh, this bulb conserves energy. I don't know what makes an energy-saving bulb energy-saving, but I buy them all the time, and I believe they're energy-saving. So that is the kind of conversation we had yesterday. And why am I belaboring it today? Because that is exactly what keeps us from writing. We fear too much what people make of us, and we said yesterday that it ought not to be a burden. People will catch up, and the majority of the people you're writing to, are you're pushing this communication through. You're not trying to prove yourself as a scientist. You're just giving them a piece of information that actually will make their life better. I know I have gone quite into it. I hope at least you have a sense of the point I'm trying to make. Doc?
Yes, you've done a good job.
Thank you. And I hope that after today, I'll be reading one of your pieces.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I'll actually be following you up to see what I read. And I assure you that it's going to be a success. And none of us will be reading to critique. Many of us will just be reading to benefit from it and move on and have a better quality of life. So thank you so much. Now, I think with that, we can quickly move into now what opinion editorials are. And remember, as I have shared with Daktari here, that what
and just one element, Mwalimu.
Yes.
Now you have demystified some of the things which you are worried about in terms of the target audience.
Yes.
That is, we can write science to the public, and actually a large proportion of scientists will not read it. Then the other bit of it is the cultural element.
Yes.
The group from which I come from,
yes,
are the kind of group which, if you are a professor or a doctor and you have written something in a very watered down version, the community might feel quite insulted. They'll be like, how can you go writing like somebody who didn't have, who is not as well trained as we believe you are, because you are trying to break it down for the common population. How do you address these cultural discrepancies?
Thank you very much. Without sounding like I'm trying to intrude, allow me to use another example that maybe may explain that. I used it of late, which is the example of PLO. PLO is one of the guys that your culture must be very proud of when it comes to him passing across his points. Am I right?
Very right. And we're in the same category.
Exactly. Because no, PLO talks like a man of the soil. Like he does not let down his people when it comes to proving that he's well learned and he has mastered the Queen's language. But let me also ask you another question. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone, either a literate or an illiterate person, and say, by the way, do you know the other day I found the argument by PLO so like eye-opening? Do you know, I listened to that man and I was like, wow. If we are actually able to overcome our cultural bias in politics, this is how much our region would grow, this is how much we do. When was the last time you actually had a conversation with someone and they quoted PLO on something great that they had learned from them?
No, they normally have not learned much from what he says, but they have critiqued it. That is true. It's been a subject of discussion.
It's been a subject of discussion and mostly a subject of humor, right? Humor
Exactly.
in me listening to PLO and sometimes making words that don't even exist and saying this is how PLO would put it and all that. You see what I'm trying to say is PLO has his own objective in putting forth such a complex message. It might not want and would definitely not want to be your objective. Because for you as an objective, as a scientist, one of your objectives as a scientist is to actually improve the quality of life through the knowledge that is already available or the knowledge that is becoming available to humankind. So really the contribution you want to make to the general public is not knowing how many chromosomes a human whatever has. It is actually knowing why incest, for instance, is not good, not just culturally, but by science. That when you have children with your close relatives, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, this is what you are risking. That is what they want to know. And that is what is actually helpful. But if you go into the whole issue of biology and all that and genetics, if you go into the deep details, you're going to lose these people and they're likely to see a very educated doctor, but not benefit out of it. And doc, they already know you're a doctor. They already have a lot of respect for you. What have you earned by them knowing you're a well-educated doctor? Because they already knew that to begin with. So the only thing they want to know is that you're an educated doctor who is providing solutions for this country and for your people. And that in its own, you'll actually hear people saying, no. There's an article I read by Dr. So-and-so, and he said that, closely related animals must not breed. So I think the reason why my goats are behaving like this is because they are inbreeding. And you'll see someone who stopped inbreeding their goats and they will say, I learned this from a show I saw by a professor. You have actually impacted that man's life, even without them knowing anything about genetics. You just told them simply, if you do, it's like telling you this is about, you fix it, you switch it on, light comes in, and they really benefit, other than trying to teach them how actually the light ends up coming in, because we may never get it. And that's basically what I'm trying to pass across, that you're actually gonna make more friends and have more in the community, because you'll be creating greater shows that are actually very relatable and very applicable for them. That is actually what is going to make the people hold you in high regards, that every time they listen to you, they take home something that changes their lives. I listened to him the first time. I knew I should not microwave my food with polythene. I listened to him the second time. I knew that, the importance of having my plates rinsed well of the common detergents we use at home. I listened to him the third time, I learned this. I listened to him the fourth time, I learned this. And you will find that you will get a congregation of followers because there is something that they are learning every day that is applicable to them every day. And that is the calling of every scientist. Is my argument sensible?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I've learned.
Thank you very much. All right. Yep. All right. You're welcome. And trust you me, it is not unique to you. It is not unique to a group of people. It is unique to all of us. And it is the burden we carry as scientists. Like we said, we always want to be taken as very seriously. And we always want to be considered as people worth our salt, because, whenever you bear the word doctor, you are actually attracting a lot of responsibility, and that is the same responsibility that keeps us away from helping people, because we feel more comfortable sticking amongst our peers, because that is what we feel comfortable at, because at least there we look learned. But down here, we also need the people to know how it is helping us. So thank you very much. And we will go now to the op-eds. I hope we are able to rush through a bit. And basically, what we're saying is that the hardest part about doing an op-ed, the hardest part is getting a title. What to write about. And we also said that it can be highlighted on what when still to do it. And that's why we said the easiest way to find a topic to write about, basically to go by the current affairs, what is currently ongoing, what is the discussion, because it will always give you an idea of what to write about. But another thing that also can give you ideas of what to write about are the current discussions you have with your colleagues, or you have in the village with the people down there, like people going and asking you, by the Daktari, how do we go about this? Or maybe experiences you see, maybe you're driving down, or you're down in the village and you realize, oh, these people are making this liquid soap, but they are not making it very well. Or these people are trying to burn refuse, but there are some things they are burning that actually ought not to be burned. Maybe it could be some plastics, it could be something that actually could, instead of just feeling sorry for them, I hope those people know how risky it is to be burning these elements without having the mask on, or I wish these people would know that this is not to be burned without an incinerator, or I hope these people would know that water pumps are not supposed to be or fuel-based water pumps are not supposed to be submerged in water. Such basic things about life. And then you actually look at it and turn it into a writing, because if one person is doing it, trust you me, many others are doing it. So if you someone who is burning plastic the wrong way, you could correct them or just try and pass a message to them. But trust me, there are many others who are doing the same. So you can just turn it into a write-up and actually write about it. Or maybe it is something that's been trending in the media. Maybe it is the high cost of living. And you're thinking, oh, by the way, there is this that can actually lower the cost of living, which is a hack that you know out of your expertise. So that is basically how Indian I did like no just write the talk how being things to write about from all over. And every day you're thinking, this is a good topic the public about. This would make a good topic to educate the public about. Can you hear me, Tim?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So by the time you finish the first one, you realize just how interesting the writing gets, and you will also be able to, even have the motivation to write. So those ideas that have come into your mind of areas that you could actually write to educate the public about, please write them down. And let us craft. At the end of today, we'll be having sample write-ups. You may need those topics to actually write a piece on, and we'll be able to review it. All right? Now, let us go into the style of how to deliver op-eds or opinion editorials. We discussed the better part of it yesterday. We said that the language should be very lively, very provocative, as in it's not burdensome. You should not feel very tired when reading it. And that is one of the reasons why we agreed that we ought not to use very complex language, that we may want to look serious by using very complex language, but in looking serious, we lose our audience. Let us be simple, just basic simplified English, so that the populace out there can be able to follow us. Let us also avoid using jargon. Then we are talking about using very colorful language. We say as much as it's possible, try and use descriptions or images whenever possible. Maybe you can start with a good clear photo of something so that people can actually be able to relate with what you're saying, and also it can be able to draw people's attention to your writer. Sorry for those who were not here yesterday. You may need to listen to what we covered yesterday, because most of this may rush to go through and be covered yesterday. Then we have talked about timing, about linking the issue with a news item. And basically what we will be remaining now is just a bit of writing and so I think let us take of them around 20 minutes. I will take about now how to write. Let me see. Thank you. Can we, as usual, just do a quick check-in? We already have one person, just 9 more, just to know that we have a quorum. Nine people to check in for us, and then we move on. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Pamela. You can check in by unmuting and letting us know you're there, or by chat. Thank you, Adam. I can't see you, so I need to know you're here. Emmanuel Guantai, are you around? Eric Onyango? Ngando? Pane, are you around? Gertrude? Humphrey Misigo? Immaculate Odero? Isaiah? Olay Nicholas?
I am in.
Thank you.
I'm in. I am in.
Thank you. Zin. All right. Okay. I see a number of check-ins. Thank you. Yes, we can continue discussion. The last law, we're looking at more details are going in the notes that we share with you. But for discussion's sake, I think we move on to feature stories. I'll be basically contrasting them with op-eds and news stories. Basically to bring out the difference so that we can see. But I want to call you to all refresh your minds on what we discussed this morning about messaging and about message strategy. I want you to remember about the 5 W's and the H. I would also call upon you to kindly refresh your mind on the 7 C's and the T. Because even as we write, those are the basic elements that will actually come to make our message complete and make our message actually readable, understandable, and executable. I also would like to call upon you to refresh your mind on what we have been discussing about the bait and the hook, that even as we write, we need to remember that the bait and the hook need to work together as part of the messaging strategy, be able to deliver the actions that you want to be acted upon very effectively. I want to call upon us also to remember what we discussed about the burden of proof, and that when we're writing, we need to write easy. We need to come into the table easy. We don't need for carrying the burden of proof with us. We need to know that we are not writing or addressing a judgmental in communication. And there is a panel, someone who is there to prove that you know what you're saying and that what you're saying is relevant and that your data was collected the right way. It's important, but that is not what we are looking at here. We are coming from the point of, we know you have faced quite a number of experts in your field. They are comfortable that you're qualified in your field. You have even been awarded a doctorate degree, possibly, or you already have a master's or a first degree. We already respect that. And with that, we consider that you know what you're talking to us about, and we want to listen. So we are not asking you to come and prove you're a doc, because if you come with that mentality, you may never achieve the simplicity that is needed with writing for the general public. Again, where we ended, reminding ourselves that the general public is actually literate, very, very literate. However, they are not as knowledgeable in your area of expertise as you are. And what they need is not the new groundbreaking knowledge. What they need is actually some of those things that you consider as very basic. That is what we need. The time when we'll be needing to follow you and know what a scholar you are, we will follow you with your scholarly writings, and with scholarly writings, we are going to gauge how scholarly you are. But writing for the general public is not an academic paper, so we need not approach it with a very academic, in a very academic sense. And why I'm saying that is because we've got to start enjoying writing. And if you're not enjoying writing, you're never going to start writing. If you're not enjoying sharing your ideas, even if it's not written, maybe it's just verbal. But if you're not enjoying discussing your ideas with people, then you're never started. So let us start from the point that where we enjoy, where we are not laboring, because trust me, if you're laboring, your audience will also be laboring. Some of the things that you did for a feature stories, whatever it is that you're communication, then you really need to consider those factors. So maybe we can get to think of a feature being
Grace, are you there?
I think she just dropped again.
Okay, let's just give her a minute.
kindly. If you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm waiting for someone to share, because I believe out of this great number of people who have acted with feature stories, or what you would like to believe is a feature story, be able to know whether really it's a feature story or not. But I first want to know what your experiences have. Okay. Uh, uh, let's go into the feature stories. Most
I'm not sure if it's just me, but Grace, your connectivity is not good. You're breaking. Can't hear you.
Hello, Zeni.
Yes, hello, Manuel.
Hello. Zeni, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Emmanuel, please proceed. I can hear you. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Zeni. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Why don't we just get these slides, because it seems this presentation is not going to happen.
I will share the slides, but Dr. Grace has said she's rejoining us just now. So let's just give her a minute if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But, you remember yesterday I wrote on the chat that I've been having connectivity issues.
Oh, yes,
Turns out
yes.
it wasn't me. Yeah, because I couldn't get audio. I thought it was only me.
Ah, okay.
So I've been having that problem since yesterday.
Mm.
So I've just been looking at the slides, and then sometimes I get the audio, sometimes it just disappears. And I thought it was
Okay.
only me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we could just get the slides,
Okay.
at least we'll be able to fill in, especially now that we're on feature stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Really appreciate. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So it's supposed to have a practical session. That's why I'm suggesting we just give her a second to rejoin, so that
Yeah, but with the kind of audio that we are having,
yeah, it's
because now
actually
even if I'm called upon, even if I'm called upon, I'm
at least two newspapers. Stating this just for you to be able to estimate, and also are at least 1,000 words. Sometimes it will be 1,200, sometimes 1,500. It depends on many things. It depends first on the paper that is the gate is publishing. It also depends on the number of graphics that are included, and also depends as to whether you're publishing it on an ordinary newspaper or it's letter or a magazine. But feature stories are very lengthy, and that is actually the easiest to recognize. There are various types of feature stories.
Excuse
There
me,
is
Dr.
what
Ray.
we call yes.
Excuse me, Dr. Ray. Can you go to the previous slide, because that is where
Yes.
we lost you? Where you're talking about feature stories or human interest articles that focus on particular people. Can you start from there, please?
I don't remember. I think what I'm doing is basically going over my slides. So I may not quite, is this one? What are feature stories?
Yes, popular content. Yes. That's why I got lost.
Oh, okay.
No, the one before this. Is it the
this
one before this?
That one?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, okay. No, it's the next. Yeah, it's popular content of print electronic. The next one now. Yeah, that one. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate. But allow me also to state that I'll be providing these notes, so need not worry too much about capturing everything that is on the slide, because some of us who are capturing content slide, it may feel very frustrating. Some of them I jump over because it's content I have already shared, but it will be there in the notes, or it's something that I feel I can explain verbally as we move on because of time. Yeah, but like we said, basically feature stories are lengthy stories, and mostly they are human interest stories. But let's see now the type that are there so that we can be able to cover them properly. There is basically human interest. And this is what mainly forms, I would say, a majority of the feature stories. Human interest stories are covered in human interest issues. They are mostly very, very relevant. That is why you can write from one page to another without people losing interest, because they are actually very relevant, although they are also broken into parts so that anybody can be able to, you must not start the feature story from the beginning for you to make sense of it. And we'll be seeing this when we'll be coming to the styles of writing a feature story versus a news story. You remember those parts that we said, the 5 W's and H, who did what, where, when, how? The 7 C's and the T, those ones apply to all. But the 5 W's and the H usually are organized differently in different write-up materials. For instance, for feature stories, every other section must try as hard as possible, or is reasonably possible, to actually cover the 5 W's and the H. However, they are not organized as they would be in a news story. In a news story, we usually have the lead or just the first paragraph telling the whole story, such that what follows up are basically facts that now make the story believable or readable. But you get the gist of the content from just the first paragraph. For the feature stories, it's written in such a way that, or it's broken down in such a way that you must not read the first paragraph for you to make sense of the rest of the story. Feature stories are so interesting that when well executed, you could have a feature story of 2 pages. You get an old newspaper where 1 page has been misplaced. You read the second story. It will not be complete, but it will still make a lot of sense. Because it is the same story, but being told from different angles. Let me give you an example. I don't know whether we recently came across it, for those of us who are in Kenya. A feature story that was done on the late Lizzie, the founder of a catering college. Sorry, it just escaped my mind. And there's a feature story that basically captures her life, her education, her marriage life, and all that. And even if you had missed the first few sections of the story, and you still came to how she founded the company, or the college, you'd still be able to read through and trying to say that feature stories are written in such a way that they make sense even without the first paragraph having been read or written elaborately. This is very different from a news story. For a news story, you lose paragraph, you will straight of the content. Now, the op-eds are also done a similar way. Op-ed does not the lead paragraph. You don't start with the 5 Ws and the H in the first paragraph, but you are advised to capture it within the first 3 paragraphs. Why is it so? Because for the op-eds, sometimes you will be writing an op-ed in response or in critique to someone else's opinion, right? Like, for instance, I wrote an opinion on why GMOs are not fit for consumption, human consumption. And as a researcher, you feel that is not right, and I missed a few points, and you want to correct my point of view. So you write a rebuttal. You write a rebuttal that basically wants to give another different point of view on that topic. This is opinion that you need to put on the table. So one paragraph in such a case, if it is a rebuttal, you may the 5 Ws and the H, and then the 5 Ws and the H of your argument may come in second paragraph. And for basically who, what, where, when, and the how. It's what makes the completeness of the story, and it's what actually readers read to tell whether this is relevant for. And if you have wrapping up, maybe you can just today a newspaper article, and the first paragraph of that newspaper article is the lead paragraph that contains the 5 Ws and the H, and you could pick that article and try to analyze where are those parts of the Ws and the H, right? But for feature stories, like we're saying, that is spread across all the sections, because for feature stories, we have just said that assuming that it's a feature that covers my story, for example, well, assuming that I'm a person of interest in this country, you may want to cover first my earlier life, growing up, where did I grow up, how far am I educated, and all that, what am I encountered in life. And in each part, like for example, when you're covering my earlier life, it will mean that my earlier life covers the 5 Ws and the H. That section covers the 5 Ws and the H. Who is Grace? Why is, or where did she come from? How did she get where she's getting? And when did this happen? And where did it happen? Where did she grow up and all that? So that section must cover the 5 Ws and the H. Then you come maybe to my academic achievements. Again, that section must cover the 5 Ws and the H. And then maybe you can go to my future plans. Again, they must cover at least the better part of 5 Ws and the H, such that if someone misses the piece of where I grew up, but picked up the piece that was writing about my academic achievements, they would still be able to tell who we are talking about and what her academic achievements are. And that's why we are saying that every section acts as a semi-independent article that actually someone, or part of an article that someone can actually read and understand. Now, human interest stories, like we said, are the most common features that we will ever have. But they're not all that we have. We have profiles. Profiles can actually be done on an individual, maybe somebody's lifestyle, character, and all that. Profiles can also be done on projects. Profiles can also be done on institutions. And most of us as institutions, what we like doing when we are actually putting our organizations out there is doing profiles, either of institutions or projects. And again, like we said, the 5 Ws and the H are spread across. If maybe we are doing a profile at the University of Nairobi, we may want to cover, because it's a wide institution, we may want to ask ourselves exactly what do we want to pass across about this university. Because there's so much we could write, and yet remember what we discussed this morning, that our discussions need to follow a logical flow. As much as these parts of our write-up are independent, they are also interlinked and in a very logical flow. So they really need to make, one part needs to smoothly lead to the other part. It shouldn't be like a very distinct path, like you're writing about the University of Nairobi, about its foundation, then you finish. It's a complete, then you start again about maybe the number of campuses, its spread and all that, how many students are there, its capacity and all that, then you finish. It shouldn't feel like stories within stories, but in reality they are. When you're writing a feature stories, it's more it plays like part of a story that actually makes the main story and stands as its own story, but it's so interlinked with the first story that you may actually not be able to tell the difference. Let's into and elaborating about writing of some of these common tools, and we should be, when you look at the notes, for instance, even if you don't get the introduction part and you just go straight to writing op-eds, it should give you enough information for you to understand what we are talking about. What are opinion editorials? How do you write them and all that? However, should you start from the day one content about communication, what to look into communication, how to look into communication, by the time you're getting into op-eds is one very smooth logical flow, and the first part is tied to the second part. And that is what happens in the features. The first part ought to be very tightly tied to the second, third, and fourth parts, depending on how broken the feature is. And then we have the how-tos. These are very common, especially in techie magazines. For example, how to build a house, how to make a liquid soap, how to environment, there's really so many how peers, and some of the easiest for scientists to do, because as much as they are how-tos, they are actually very much related to our style of lecture, and therefore scientists find it easier to write how-tos than they do about profiles when they are starting, because it's more like takes the flow that a lecture would take. However, remember, by saying it takes the same flow doesn't mean that I'm encouraging you to maintain the same structure and the same language. No, I'm just saying one leads onto another. There's a very step track language or notes to. Then we have the history, very common, but done by mainstream medias. You have seen people doing historical features on important dates in history, turning point in political and cultural developments, and also and all that. Sometimes these historical features could be somehow intertwined with a profile. It could be an historical profile, and it is allowed. Like, for example, we could do a historical profile on the political landscape of a country, whereby we feature the major political leaders over time, and we are able to show how the leadership of one political leader led to the other, and possibly to the growth of or development of where we are politically. So, and mainly they will be done by seasoned journalists and by mainstream media. Then we have behind the scenes. These ones are again done very easily by techies. These ones, we have seen very many of them being done by maybe people in the construction industry, science industry, basically telling us, okay, you all see the light. Do you know how it works? Okay. You have all seen these skyscrapers with different shapes and forms. Do you know how they are kept grounded, like without any dangers of toppling over or anything? So those are some of the behind the scenes that we have seen and that can be done in the science world. Basically, they're just used to expose the intricacies that are behind what we all see and know. And remember that behind the scene is not the same as an expose. We have intellectual exposés that can be done as features, but they are not the same as behind the scenes, because exposés will mostly dig into new information. For instance, did you know that boiling food with just this kind of plastic, for example, you know, there's the microwave safe and all that plastics, but these normal plastics is actually tied to 20% of the cancer increase of cancer incidences in the country. Now, a scientist may want to go and do an expose on that or an exposure on that. And usually it's a very, very rewarding experience for most scientists. It's very rewarding, especially for those who are you know, who are in love with just exposing new findings. But why most scientists will not be able to write exposés very well is because we still come with the burden of wanting to look learned. Remember the burden of proof that we have been discussing over and over again. So we may end up pulling in too many facts into the table that we either make the expose too heavy or too long or too complex. So, but if you can start by writing a op-ed and writing a normal feature, then doing an expose for a feature story would really work very well. Because the essence is, you need to know that before you expose the new knowledge, you need to also tell us about the old knowledge, which is old to you. You already know it. It's common to you. So you need to let us know that there is this kind of rays that plastic contains, that when heated, they get into food. And when they get into food, they trigger cancer. That is something, according to you, you already know, but we don't. So you need to let us know. And then you need to go into letting us know that you see when you use microwave, it generates this form of heat that is strong enough, you know, to generate this kind of, let me call them waves, because on these I'm very less. So you let us know that. And then let us know that this food in the microwave, if exposed to such, it has the ability to absorb it. And then now go into the discussion. That now why we are discussing that is because as much as heating food with safe containers in the microwave may not mean that you get cancer, if you use the wrong plastic, then you're likely to be exposing yourself to cancer, to contracting cancer. And these are some of the unsafe plastics, and this is how they are. So it has to be woven in a very conversational way, in a very simple way, but in an expose kind of thing, that someone will be learning something new from the ordinary, when you're just letting us into the ordinary knowledge, so that we are able to build up into the new novel. And usually it's something that I know many of you would enjoy doing, and I actually encourage you to do it. But the only thing that needs to happen is that you really need to succeed. You really need to succeed in holding your audience attention from the start right to the end. You need to be very simple. You need to be very factual, but do not belabor with the facts and data. And you also need to use a very concise way of communication so that you can be able to cover a very wide span of knowledge without necessarily coming up with a book as opposed to a feature story. All right, then we're asking how we go about writing. Basically, we're saying that the writer's opinions and attitudes are not important to the story. And you may want to wonder, or you may wonder, why are we saying the writer's opinion and attitude is not important in the story? And yet it is your opinion. Remember, this is a professional opinion. I will give you an example. If I am, for instance, of a faith that does not prescribe to the use of family planning methods, and I am writing a feature story on family planning methods, what I ought to go by is not my personal conviction or based on my faith. It is actually what science says about what I am writing. So it is not about how I feel. This is not a letter to the editor. It is not about how I feel or what I want. This is actually what science says. So I need to remain very grounded, and I need to pull myself out of the story. Like we said in the morning, you really need to separate yourself from the story. You really need to separate yourself from whatever communication piece that you are doing. It will also ease the burden of proof. You shouldn't consider your write-up as the basis of what will be used to either justify you as a scientist or not. This is not a research paper, like we said. So separate yourself from the paper so that the paper can be able to speak on its own, or the write-up can be able to speak on its own. We are also talking about writing in third person. Yes, because when you're writing an op-ed or a feature, you're likely to get too much carried away with what you think about the person, or you're likely to betray yourself in your own opinions of a particular issue. Because sometimes it may not be common for you as journalists, as scientists, but for those of us who may want to eventually, join the team of science communication professionals, you will find yourself covering features of something that conflict your beliefs. Allow me to use a political example, as much as we are talking about science here. Imagine of someone who does not ascribe to the leadership style of Ruto, but as our current president, but it's your job today to do a feature on him. If you do not separate yourself from what you're writing and from the content that is before you, you may end up writing more of a critique than a feature, because a feature you're supposed to be featuring him. But if you do not separate yourself, you may end up actually writing a critique. And that's why we're saying those things that you really don't believe in, then you are better off even separating yourself. And the same is true even for the things that you believe in. The moment you fail to separate yourself, you run the risk of being over-sensational. You run the risk of really sensationalizing this because this is your passion. I mean, this is work you have done for 10 years. It's your passion, it's your liking, it's your dream every day. And you may end up telling us more about your work in that project than telling us about the project. So separate yourself. What we want to know is this project that has yielded. Maybe instead of knowing that, if you're doing a project, a feature on a project, you as a so separate yourself. Please don't start telling us where you've gone to school, how many PhDs you've successfully studied and all that. It's all great, but really not relevant. What you want to know is it's by you, is not the story that we then we're saying that the power of just the ability to amplify the story usually we like finishing our training with an assignment, which we honestly hope that you'll be able to take seriously and that you'll be able to deliver on, that you pick a topic of interest and draft. Remember, this is not a complete write-up, it's just a draft. Draft either an opinion piece that is an op-ed or a feature story, or maybe you had a draft that you thought didn't go too well. Just go now with the knowledge that you have and the notes that you will be able to share with you, revamp it and be able to share with us at the end of the day, so that we can be able to look at it and advise you on how you can make it better. Now, this is a private assignment, but we sure hope that you will be able to do it. But should it not happen today, very well, and in the future, maybe you feel stuck and you'd like us to get hold of you, please do not hesitate to write us, and we'll be happy to get back with you. Kevina will share with you through the chat my email address, TCC's address, which you already have, email address, as well as the contacts for myself and also for TCC. So Kevina, thank you. I'm sure you'll be able to do that. And as we close, I just want to let you know that we'll be sharing with you the notes of today's training and yesterday's training, as well as the recording for those of you who may have missed a few sessions. Lastly, it is just to apologies for what happened today afternoon. For some reason, the network was unusually weak, and my biggest apologies for that. Those who have been with us, you know, it is not usually what happens, but things do happen. So my apologies for the inconveniences. God bless you. Hope to see you soon, and hope to hear from you. I'll be hoping to receive quite a bit of drafts from you. Thank you, and God bless you. And for drafts, kindly do not send through my personal address. You could copy me, but the best is to write to TCC and then copy me. But for any other question, any other query, anything you do not understand or you need an additional hand-holding that has to do with this training, then feel free to reach me directly through my address or through my phone or through TCC. God bless you and goodbye. Kevina, it's up to you.
Thank you, Grace. I think first I'd like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you who has stuck with us through and participated with enthusiasm throughout these 2 days. And also thank you to our trainer, Dr. Grace, for the insights that have been shared. It has been 2 very good sessions. I made the announcements when we went on a break, but just as Dr. Grace said, if you feel you have a challenge understanding any concept of the science communication training that we just had for the past 2 days, feel free to reach out through the admin email that I have shared in the chat. You can also ask your questions for any clarification in the WhatsApp groups. Our trainers will be there to guide you through whatever question that you have. I think that's all for me. Thank you all once again for your patience, and goodbye. So I'll end the meeting in a minute. If you have any inquiry or anything you'd like to ask, please, I'm here for that 1 minute. Thank you.